The forest did not scream when the gunshot tore through it. That was the cruelest part. There was no warning, no dramatic echo to mark the moment. Everything broke, just a sharp metallic crack that cut the morning air, and then a silence so complete it felt deliberate, as if the land itself were holding its breath in disbelief. Moments earlier, the rainforest had been alive in the way only dawn can manage. Mist clung to music, the broad leaves like unspoken prayers, insects hummed, birds argued over music territory, and somewhere deep in the undergrowth, a mother gorilla moved with the quiet confidence of one who has survived many seasons. She was not old, but she carried the weight of vigilance in her shoulders. Every step she took was measured, every pause intentional, tucked close against her chest was her cub, small fingers tangled in her fur, heartbeat pressed against hers. To him the world was still simple. Warmth meant safety, her scent meant life. Then came the sound that did not belong. The bullet found her before fear could. It struck with the brutal efficiency of something designed to end, not won. Her body jerked once, instinctively turning not away from danger, but toward her child. Even in that instant, even as pain flooded through her, she folded herself around him. The forest watched as she fell, her massive form collapsing into the damp earth, leaves trembling from the impact. The cub squealed, startled more than afraid, confused by the sudden absence of movement where there had always been motion. The men who fired the shot did not rush forward. They never do. They waited, listening, making sure the forest stayed silent. To them, this was not murder. It was inventory, clears throat, meat, profit. Another life reduced to weight and value. They moved with practiced speed. Boots crushing ferns, rifles slung low, eyes scanning not for life, but for witnesses. The cub clung to his mother as just as a pressure alone could wake her. He tugged at her fur, whimpering softly, then louder. The sound cut through the air like something fragile being torn. But she did not respond. Her breath had already left her. The warmth that had been his entire universe was fading minute by minute into something terrifyingly still. When the hunters reached them, one of them paused, not out of mercy, but irritation. The cub was a complication, too small to be worth much, too alive to be ignored. For a brief moment, the forest waited to see which instinct would win. They chose cruelty. Hands grabbed the cub, prying his fingers loose from the body that no longer protected him. He screamed, then a raw, panicked sound that bounced off the trees and vanished into the canopy. His cries did not move the men. They had heard worse. They dragged the mother away, her body heavy, unresisting, leaving the cub behind like discarded evidence of something inconvenient. And then they were gone. No ceremony, no acknowledgement, just the echo of footsteps retreating, swallowed by distance, and the forest left to reckon with what had been done. The cubs sat where they dropped him, stunned into silence. His world had ended, and he did not yet understand why. He crawled toward the place where his mother had fallen, nose pressed to the ground, searching for her scent, for any sign she might return. He found only disturbed earth, broken leaves, and a coldness that did not belong. He cried again, louder, this time a sound that carried desperation instead of confusion. The forest answered with nothing. No arms closed around him. No heartbeat steadied his own. Only unfamiliar noises now seemed to close too sharp. Every rustle became a threat. Every shadow felt enormous. Hunger crept in next, slow and unforgiving. So did fear. The cub had never been alone, not like this. He did not know how to forage, how to hide properly, how to read the signs of danger etched into the land. His mother had always known, she had always decided when to move, when to stop, when to flee. Without her, the world expanded into something vast and merciless. As the day stretched on, the forest seemed changed. The birds returned cautiously, their songs thinner, less certain. Clear's throat, insects resumed their work, indifferent to grief. Nature did not pause for loss, and that was its most brutal truth. Life continued, even when a life had been stolen. But something else stirred as well, far beyond the place where the cub huddled. Beyond the trees, heavy with shadow, a presence shifted. A predator moved through the landscape, following paths older than memory, guided by instincts, honed by survival. He did not hear the gunshot, but he would soon encounter its aftermath. The scent of blood does not disappear quietly, it lingers, travels, calls. The forest had fallen silent, not because it was empty, but because it was waiting for consequences, waiting for a choice that should never exist, waiting to see whether the death of one mother would end in nothing more than another forgotten cruelty, or whether, against all reason, something impossible would rise from the wreckage. In that silence, a small cub curled in on himself, shivering, unaware that his fate had not yet finished unfolding. He only knew that the arms that once held him were gone, and somewhere unseen, the world was already shifting toward a moment no one could have imagined, let alone believed. The forest had gone quiet, but the story was only beginning. The cub waited. He did not know that was what he was doing, only that instinct told him to stay close to the place where his mother had last been warm. He sat in the churned leaves where her body had fallen, small arms wrapped around himself, rocking slightly as if motion alone might bring her back. In his mind, she had not disappeared forever. She had simply gone still, and stillness to a young gorilla did not yet mean the end of anything. He crawled a few steps, then stopped, sniffing the air. Her scent was everywhere, on the earth, on the crushed plants, on his own fur. It confused him. If she was gone, why was she still here? He pressed his face into the ground and inhaled deeply, as though breathing her in could summon her shape back into the world. His fingers scraped at the dirt where she had lain, tiny nails digging uselessly, urgently, as if uncovering something hidden beneath the surface. A soft sound escaped his throat, not a scream this time, a questioning nose, the sound of a child who expects an answer. None came. Time passed without meaning. The sun climbed higher, burning away the mist, exposing the cub to a brightness he had never faced alone. His mother had always chosen where to rest, when to move into shade. Now the light pressed down on him relentlessly. His skin prickled, his mouth felt dry. He shifted uncomfortably, glancing around, suddenly aware of how open the forest floor was, without her bulk shielding him. Still, he did not leave. Every few minutes he looked toward the direction she had once moved, from ears straining, eyes wide, waiting for the familiar rhythm of her steps. He imagined her return with a certainty only innocence allows. In his world, mothers did not vanish. They always came back. He tried to climb a low root, slipping awkwardly, tumbling onto his side. Normally, she would have corrected him with a gentle nudge, a firm but reassuring touch. He lay still for a moment, stunned, then let out a thin, trembling cry. The sound startled him as much as it echoed through the trees. It sounded wrong without her answering call. Hunger arrived quietly, knowing rather than demanding. His stomach tightened, reminding him of something he had never had to think about. Feeding had always happened Against her chest, warmth and nourishment inseparable. Now there was only emptiness and the memory of comfort. He sucked instinctively on his fingers, then whimpered in frustration. When nothing followed, the forest around him felt larger with every passing moment. Sounds he had once ignored now loomed, a branch snapping somewhere distant made him flinch violently. Birds bursting into flight sent him scrambling backward, heart racing. He crouched low, mimicking a posture he had seen his mother take when danger passed nearby, but without her example beside him the movement felt clumsy, incomplete. Fear settled into his small body, not sharp and immediate, but heavy and exhausting. As afternoon stretched on, fatigue dragged at him. He wandered in a slow, uneven circle, never straying far from the place he believed she would return to. Each time he moved away, panic surged, pulling him back like an invisible rope. He collapsed eventually against a fallen log, curling inward, eyes fluttering as exhaustion overtook him. Sleep came in fragments. He dreamed of her heartbeat, steady and deep, vibrating through him. He reached for it, even in sleep, fingers closing around nothing. Each time he woke, confusion hit anew, sharper than before. Where was she? Why was everything wrong? As evening crept closer, the temperature shifted. The warmth of the day drained away, replaced by a creeping chill that seeped into his bones. The cub shivered, teeth chattering softly. He had never slept without her body beside him, never felt night air without her arm draped protectively across his back. Darkness began to gather between the trees, thickening shadows into shapes that seemed to move when he looked away. His cries grew quieter now, not because his need lessened, but because despair was heavier than panic. He no longer expected an answer. He cried because something inside him hurt too much to stay silent. Loneliness is not something animals name, but they feel it all the same. It pressed down on him like a weight, stealing warmth, stealing courage. He hugged his knees to his chest, rocking gently, a self-soothing motion born of desperation. His eyes tracked every movement in the undergrowth, every flicker of motion setting his heart racing. Night fell fully. The forest changed its voice. Daytime sounds faded, replaced by deeper, more ominous calls. Insects droned somewhere far off. Something large moved with purpose. The cub froze breath, held instincts, screaming that he was exposed. He pressed himself flat against the ground, trying to make himself small, invisible. He did not know predators by name, but his body recognized danger. Tears hot, silence slid down his face, soaking into his fur. He did not understand death, only absence, only the unbearable wrongness of a world without the one presence that had defined safety. If he stayed still enough, quiet enough, maybe she would find him. Maybe she was lost too. The cub lifted his head suddenly when a breeze carried a familiar scent. His heart leapt, hope flaring painfully bright. He scrambled to his feet, wobbling, turning in slow circles, searching desperately. The scent was old, now diluted, but it was hers. Proof she had existed, proof she belonged here, proof that something had taken her away. He sank back down, the last of his strength draining out of him. His eyes burned heavy with exhaustion and grief he could not comprehend. He curled tightly against the earth, pressing his face into the ground one last time, as if the soil itself might comfort him. Somewhere beyond the reach of his understanding, the forest listened. The cub did not know that survival was now question, not a certainty. He did not know that the night held teeth and hunger and choices that could not be undone. He only knew that he was alone, and that the arms he trusted would never close around him again, and in that fragile, aching stillness, the innocence of his waiting became the most heartbreaking thing of all. He arrived without sound, not crashing through brush, not announcing himself with a roar, but slipping between the trees with the effortless authority of something that had never needed to hurry. The forest sensed him before the cub did. Birds cut their calls short, insects stilled. Even the wind seemed to hesitate, as though waiting to see what choice would be made next. The lion stepped into the clearing just as the last light of day drained from the sky. He was old by the standards of his kind, not ancient, but marked his man darker than at once had been shot through with dust in time. His left shoulder carrying a jagged scar that pulled the skin when he moved. It was a kind of scar earned through survival, not accident. Hunger had shaped him. Territory disputes, seasons that did not forgive weakness. He had not come hunting with intention. His pride was scattered tonight, resting far to the west, where water still lingered. He was alone, patrolling a boundary that no longer meant much, following instincts older than memory. The scent had reached him, first blood, dried and faint, mixed with something softer, something wrong, not prey, not rival, infant. The cub felt the shift in the world before he saw the shape. His head snapped up, eyes wide, breath hitching sharply in his chest. The outline before him was enormous, unreal, a moving wall of muscle and shadow. His body reacted before thought could form. He scrambled backwards, slipping on leaves, a thin, terrified cry tearing from his throat. The lion stopped. That alone was unnatural. Predators do not pause when fear announces itself so clearly. They respond, they close distance, they act. Every rule of the savannah dictated that. The small shaking figure before him was an opportunity, easy, defenseless, final. The lion lowered his head slightly, nostrils flaring. The scent was clearer now, not just the cub's fear, sharp and frantic, but something else clinging to him. Gorilla, adult, female, death lingered on it, unmistakable and wrong. The lioness' eyes narrowed, not with hunger, but with attention. The cub froze, completely pressed against the earth, arms wrapped around his head in a posture learned too late. His body trembled violently. He did not scream. Again, some instinct had told him screaming would not save him now. The lion took one step forward, then another. Each movement was deliberate, controlled, his massive paws placing themselves with care that seemed almost thoughtful. He circled slightly, not cutting off escape. There was none, but observing. The cub squeezed his eyes shut, waiting for pain, for teeth, for the end of waiting. It did not come. Instead, the lion sat. The motion was heavy, the ground shifting under his weight, but it was unmistakable. He folded his legs beneath him and lowered himself into stillness. Only a few meters away, his tail flicked once, slow, not agitated. His gaze remained fixed on the cub, but it was not the gaze of a hunter lining up a kill. It was the gaze of something measuring, reconsidering. The cub peeked through his fingers, confused, terror clouding his small face. The shape was still there, too close, too real, but it had not moved closer. It had not lunged. The cub's breathing came in ragged bursts as he struggled to understand what his instincts could not explain. The lion exhaled deeply. The sound rolled low from his chest. Not a growl, not a threat, a breath, a release. It carried weight, the kind that belonged to an animal accustomed to deciding the fate of others. He leaned forward slightly, lowering his massive head closer to the ground, making himself smaller. It was not submission, it was choice. The cub whimpered softly, the sound thin and broken. He crawled backward another inch, then stopped, trapped by exhaustion more than fear. Now his eyes locked onto the lioness, dark meeting golden. There was no reflection of himself there, no recognition of kin or species, but there was something else. Stillness. The lion rose again slowly this time and took a careful step closer. The cub flinched violently, pressing himself flat, breath stuttering. The lion halted immediately, as though the reaction itself had answered a question. He turned his head away. It was a subtle movement, easy to miss but devastating in its meaning, a predator showing his profile, not his teeth, a decision to de-escalate when every instinct should have screamed, otherwise the forest held its breath. Minutes passed in fragile silence. The cub did not move. The lion did not advance. Night settled fully around them, shadows thickening, sounds deepening. Somewhere far off, another predator called. The lioness ears twitched, tracking it automatically, then returned to the cub. This small thing would not survive the night alone. That truth settled with quiet certainty. The lion lowered himself again, this time stretching out along the ground, massive body forming an unintentional barrier between the cub and the deeper forest. His flank rose and fell with slow, steady breaths. Heat radiated from him, carried on the cool night air. The cub noticed the warmth before he understood it. Cold had crept into his bones hours ago. Now, against terror, hunger, and grief, another sensation pressed forward. Relief, confusion weared with instinct as his body leaned almost involuntarily toward the warmth. He inched forward, then stopped, paralyzed by fear of crossing an invisible line. The lion did not move. He did not look directly at the cub now. His gaze was angled outward, watching the darkness, standing guard without ceremony. His presence alone altered the night. Smaller sounds retreated. The sense of being hunted faded, replaced by something unfamiliar. Safety. Eventually, exhaustion won. The cub's movements became clumsy, unfocused. He collapsed sideways, closer than before, his small body trembling violently, his breathing slowed, uneven, but deep. He did not touch the lion. He did not need to. The warmth reached him anyway, wrapping around his fragile form like an unseen arm. The lion remained awake. Hours passed. The moon climbed, then began its slow descent. Once the cub stirred and whimpered, reaching out blindly. His hand brushed the lioness' mane, fingers tangling briefly in coarse fur. He froze, eyes flying open. The lion did not react. No snap, no correction, no warning. He simply remained still. The cub stared, disbelieving. Then slowly, so slowly it barely counted as movement curled closer. His head came to rest against the lioness' sigh, fitting there as if the space had been waiting for him. His breathing steadied. Sleep, deep and merciful, finally claimed him. The lion shifted just once, adjusting his position so the cub was fully shielded from the wind. This was not mercy in the human sense. It was not kindness as a story would frame it. It was something older and rare, a decision made without language, without witnesses, without reward, a predator choosing restraint, a ruler of the savannah choosing to guard. Instead of destroy by morning, the forest would wake to something that should not exist, a gorilla cub alive, because the lion who found him refused to follow the rule written into his blood, and somewhere deep in the animal world a line had been crossed that could never be fully explained, only felt. Dawn did not arrive gently. It crept in thin and pale, washing the forest in uncertain light, revealing what the night had hidden and what should never have been. The cub woke, first shivering, disoriented, his small body stiff from cold and fear. For a split second, panic surged again until he felt the warmth beside him. He lifted his head slowly. The lion was still there, not looming, not watching him, with predatory focus, just present, massive flank rising and falling in. Steady rhythm, breath deep and calm, as though the night had been nothing more. Then another watch completed. The cub stared, heart pounding, trying to reconcile instinct with experience. Everything inside him said he should be dead. Everything around him said otherwise. The lion sensed the movement. One eye opened, amber, catching the new light, assessing without urgency. He did not move away. He did not move closer. He simply acknowledged the cub's wakefulness with a glance that carried neither threat nor tenderness, only certainty. The forest, however, offered no such calm. Morning brought danger with it. Sense sharpened, sounds multiply. Other predators would soon be moving. Hunger renewed with daylight. The place where the cub's mother had fallen was not safe, not for prey, not for a child alone, not even for a solitary lion lingering too long. The lion rose. His movement was fluid, despite his size, muscles rolling. Beneath scarred skin, the cub scrambled backward instinctively, fear flaring again, clear his throat, but the lion did not advance on him. Instead, he turned away from the forest interior and looked toward the open land beyond the trees, toward distance, exposure, and something that resembled intention. He took a few steps, then stopped. He looked back. The cub hesitated, confusion knotting his small face. He had followed his mother his entire short life. Now she was gone. This creature before him was not her, not his kind, not safe by any definition. He had been born with, yet stay meant certain death. The cub rose unsteadily and took a step. The lion waited. So began the journey no rule of nature had prepared either of them for. They moved slowly at first, the lion setting an unhurried pace, the cub struggling to keep up on trembling legs. The terrain shifted from dense forest to broken clearings, roots giving way to stone, shadows thinning under the growing sun. The cub stumbled off and falling hard, scraping hands and knees each time the lion stopped. He never touched the cub, never nudged him forward, but he did not leave either. Patience, fast and unspoken, shaped every pause. By midday the heat became oppressive. The cub's breaths came shallow and fast. His steps grew erratic. Hunger gnawed at him sharp and constant, and thirst burned his throat, until swallowing hurt he collapsed. Again, this time unable to rise, small chest heaving, eyes glassy with exhaustion. The lion stood over him, casting a wide shadow. For a long moment he did nothing. Then, with deliberate care, he lowered his body and lay down beside the cub. The heat of him blocked the sun, creating a pocket of bearable air. The cub whimpered weakly, then rolled onto his side, pressing into the shade without thinking. The lion remained still until the cub's breathing steadied again. They waited out the worst of the heat together. When the lion rose again, the cub tried to follow and failed. His legs buckled beneath him. This time the lion did not simply wait. He turned over his massive head and gently grasped the back of the cub's loose skin between his teeth. The cub froze, terror surging too fast for sound, but there was no pain. The grip was careful, practiced the same way lionesses carry their own young. The cub's body lifted from the ground, weightless and suspended, heart racing, as the world shifted beneath him. He did not fight. Some deeper instinct, older than fear, recognized the absence of harm. The lion began to walk, step by step. He carried the cub across open ground, muscles straining under unfamiliar responsibility. The cub hung limp, exhausted beyond resistance, the rhythm of the lion's gait lulling him. Into half-consciousness, the savannah opened around them, vast and merciless, the kind of space where mistakes were punished without hesitation. Other animals noticed. Zebras lifted their heads alarmed. Antelopes scattered at the sight of the lion, but slowed when they realized he was not hunting. Birds circled overhead, uneasy. The lion moved through it all without deviation, ignoring distractions, focused entirely on forward motion. Once far off, another lion called. The sound rolled across the land, deep and territorial. The lion carrying the cub paused, lifting his head, mane stirring in the hot wind. For a moment, conflict passed across his features, duty pulling in opposite directions. Then he continued on, angling away from the call, choosing distance over dominance. The journey stretched on, hours blurred together. The cub drifted in and out of consciousness, aware only of warmth, motion, and the strange certainty that he was being taken somewhere that mattered. When the lion finally set him down near a shallow water source, a place frequented by many species, watched often by humans, the cub barely stirred. The lion stood back, watching. Vehicles would come here, humans would pass through, noise, scent, movement. All the things that had once meant danger, but now meant possibility. The lion did not cross into the open clearing. He remained at its edge, hidden by brush, waiting. When distant engine sounds finally reached them, the lion took one last look at the cub. The cub stirred, weakly blinking against the light, too exhausted to understand where he was or how he had arrived. He did not see the lion step back into shadow. He did not see the final turn of that scarred head, the last check to ensure the small body still breathed. By the time humans arrived, the lion was gone. Only tracks remained, deep, unmistakable impressions in the dust leading away into the wild, tracks that told a story no one would believe if not for the living proof left behind. The impossible journey had ended, not with a roar, not with witnesses, but with a choice that rewrote everything that was supposed to happen next. The story did not end when the cub was found. In many ways, that was when it truly began. By the time the first humans reached the clearing, the cub was barely conscious, alive, breathing, his small chest rising and falling with stubborn insistence. He lay near the water's edge, coated in dust and dried blood, his eyes dull with exhaustion rather than fear. There was no sign of his mother, no sign of the lion who had carried him there, only tracks, deep, unmistakable paw prints, leading out of the clearing and vanishing into the wild. At first, the people assumed coincidence. Predators passed through water sources all the time. Cubs wandered. Tragedy was common. Nature was brutal, random, and different. But the tracks told a different story. They did not circle. They did not stalk. They did not hesitate. They moved in a straight, purposeful line from the forest to the clearing, stopping where the cub had been set down, then turning away. No signs of a struggle, no drag marks of violence, only the quiet geometry of intention. The cub survived. He was taken to a sanctuary where veterinarians worked through the night, fighting dehydration, infection, shock. For days he hovered between presence and absence, his body bearing the cost of loss, far too heavy for something so small. But he lived, and as he grew stronger, the questions grew louder. How had he crossed so much hostile terrain alone? Why were there no bite marks, no broken bones? Why did the lion tracks beside him show restraint instead of predation? Experts debated. Some dismissed it outright. Others offered cautious language. Unusual behavior, aberration, coincidence shaped by human projection. But no explanation fit cleanly, because no explanation accounted for the simplest, most uncomfortable truth. A choice had been made, not by instinct alone, not by hunger or fear, but by something that sat between them, something we reserved for ourselves. Because it frightens us to imagine it elsewhere, recognition, the story spread, quietly at first. Then it escaped its boundaries. Footage of the cub circulated, images of the tracks followed, researchers came, journalists arrived, arguments ignited across screens and conferences. Could a lion choose not to kill? Could it act outside the rigid script we had written for it? What unsettled people most was not the cub's survival, it was the implication that mercy did not belong exclusively to us. The lion had not been rewarded. There had been no applause, no witnesses, no guarantee of safety. Carrying the cub had cost him time, energy, vulnerability. It had pulled him away from territory, from potential mates, from dominance in the wild. Such detours are punished. Survival demands efficiency, and yet he had taken the detour. What the world learned from that single choice was not a lesson about lions, it was a lesson about ourselves. For centuries, we have drawn lines, human and animal, reason and instinct, morality and nature. We tell ourselves those lines keep us safe, superior, separate. But that day, those lines blurred, not because a lion became human, but because humanity was revealed as something broader than we had allowed. Compassion, it turned out, did not require language. Memory did not require names, and care did not require sameness. The cub would never know the full weight of what had been done for him. He would grow up without understanding the cost of that journey, the risk carried in every step across the open land. But the people who heard the story understood, and once understood, they could not unlearn it. Some were angered by it, others comforted. Many were changed. Because if a creature shaped entirely by survival could recognize vulnerability and choose protection, then what excuse remained for cruelty that called itself rational? What defense stood for indifference? Wrapped in policy for violence, explained as necessity when choice had always existed. The lion did not save the cub to teach a lesson, but the lesson was taught all the same, that the world is not divided into good species and bad ones, that morality is not owned by those who speak, that sometimes the smallest, quietest decisions made without witnesses, without reward, carry the greatest weight. The cub grew. The lion was never seen again, but the story stayed. It stayed in the way people spoke differently about wildlife, in the way conservation arguments shifted from numbers to narratives, in the way children asked questions adults could not answer easily anymore, and in the quiet, persistent discomfort of knowing that somewhere out there, in a place without cameras or applause, a lion had done what many humans fail to do when it matters most. He saw a life that was not his, and he chose to protect it. That is what the world learned. Not that miracles happen, but that choice is always present, even when instinct, history, and expectation insist otherwise. And once you know that you are never quite the same, the story does not end with the cub's survival. Survival was only the surface. What remains long after the dust settles, long after the tracks fade from the earth, is the question the story leaves behind, quietly but relentlessly. What does it mean to choose compassion when no one is watching? In the wild, there are no applause, no rewards, no second chances. Every decision costs energy. Every pause invites danger, and yet, in a moment where instinct alone would have justified violence, something else intervened, a choice not driven by fear, not driven by gain, but by recognition of vulnerability. That is the lesson this story offers, not as fantasy, not as sentimentality, but as a mirror. We often excuse our cruelty by claiming it is natural. We justify indifference as survival. We defend selfishness as necessity. But this story quietly dismantles those excuses, because if a creature shaped entirely by the laws of the wild can recognize suffering and choose restraint, then what does that say about the standards we hold for ourselves? The lion did not understand the cub species. He did not benefit from protecting him. He did not know the future. All he knew was the present moment in the fragile life in front of him, and in that moment he chose to protect rather than destroy. That choice echoes far beyond the savannah. It reminds us that empathy is not weakness, that strength is not proven by domination, that real power is the ability to pause, to see, and to decide differently than expected. The cub's journey teaches us that loss does not have to end in annihilation, that even after unimaginable violence, care can still appear, sometimes from the least expected place. It tells us that the world is not as neatly divided into monsters and saviors as we prefer to believe. Sometimes the savior is silent, sometimes it walks away without claiming credit, and perhaps most importantly, the story forces us to confront a difficult truth. Being human does not automatically make us humane. That is something we must choose again and again. Every day we are faced with moments large and small where we can act on instinct alone or on conscience, where we can ignore suffering because it is inconvenient, unfamiliar, or not our responsibility, or we can do what that lion did: recognize life as valuable even when it is not ours. This story is not about animals behaving like humans. It is about humans remembering what it means to be worthy of the word human in a world saturated with cruelty, division, and noise. Stories like this matter. They slow us down. They remind us that kindness does not require permission, and compassion does not need to make sense to be real. They whisper that even one quiet choice can ripple outward, changing how people see the world and themselves. If this story moved you, unsettled you, or made you think differently, then it has already done its work. And there are many more stories like this waiting to be told. Stories that remind us of empathy, courage, and the invisible bonds that connect all living beings. If you believe in stories that restore faith, rather than strip it away, stories that challenge cruelty and celebrate compassion, then we invite you to subscribe to the channel. Your support is what allows these stories to be told, shared, and remembered, because sometimes the most important stories are not about what happens next, but about what we choose to become after hearing